Hamza, hey, congratulations on your new film, The Queen of My Dreams.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
This is such a wonderful film, especially, looking at the different generations, of drama through this entire film. But we have to ask that obligatory question first is, what initially drew you that you wanted to be part of this project?
Well, for me, I'd heard of Fawzia Mirza's play that she'd performed. It was a one-woman show that everybody was raving about. It was called Me, My Mom, and Sharmila, I think that was the name of the play.
Mhm.
So I'd heard of her as an actor and an amazing actor, and then uh, I sort of, was lucky enough to have a connection made. Um, and she said she was making a movie. And the first scene we read, I said, I want to do this movie, please, like, then you just start praying that and hoping that you'll get this part because you know that that you have to do this, that you would want to be in that scene. So yeah, it was really for me, the script was love at first sight as well. And then of course doing it, and reading out that scene with Fawzia, I really after that I just prayed. So
Hamza?
Yeah, Fazia reached out to me and I read the script and we had a great amount of conversations about a great many things, childhood and fatherhood and Pakistan and culture and evolution and all of that stuff. And ultimately for me, what drew it was I know that on a large scale, it's a mother-daughter story and their relationship through time and through space and everything like that, which is great. But for the more micro of it, like for me personally, it was a father-daughter story. Like that's how I had to approach it because it was about the longing of how this child who is coming to terms with her sexuality, it longs for somebody who understands her the way that her father did. And there's small hints of him knowing early that you're gonna be the kind of you're just gonna have to be okay with the fact that you're gonna be the kid that likes frogs, and that's okay, even if nobody agrees with you. And to me that's an aspirational way to be a dad. And at the time when I was reading the script, my daughter was 2 years old or maybe three, and I was just like, this would be whatever. I don't know, I have no idea who my daughter's going to grow up to be. I can do my best to provide the best for her and guide her through whatever she's going through. And I felt like Hassan had a very good way of showing up for the thing that he loves most in life. And I was just like, I want some practice. I want some practice on how to show up for whatever is to come.
So true, so true. Nimra, now you got to play through two different time periods in this film, and your daughters are being played by two different actors in this
yes.
film. So tell us about going through that process for yourself and adjusting to two different actors playing the same daughter.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I don't get asked that often. So yeah, so my initial work was with my younger daughter who's playing, Ayana, who's playing the young Azra. And then, in the later scenes, I'm playing uh, mother to a sort of our relationship, my daughter Azra and I are strained, and somehow the seeds have been sown in the time when Azra was younger. So, um, you know, when I saw the film, and I just played the mother to the young Azra, and I played the mother to the older Azra, and when I saw it on screen, I thought to myself, "Oh my God, I made the older Azra into who she is today." And it's not her that's the problem. It was, it was something I did. It was I pushed her away. So, but again, I mean, as I'm not sort of at the time that you're making the film, you don't look at the big picture. It's a good actor, a very dedicated, committed actor will look at the big picture. But I think for me, it was just I was in the moment, being a mother to and you look at your older children, right? I don't know if you have older children, but you look at your older children and you think, where did they come from? Because I think in your mind, you're always, I don't know about you, Hamza. I don't know if you remember, with what your daughter, like right now, what you'll remember is the 7-year-old one or the 2-year-old or whatever. But it's just, I think you remember your children when they were young and they seem to have no connection with the older children. So I think
Mm,
in real life, that actually happens. That
mm,
that there are two, you're raising two different or three different or four different people. There is
mm.
no connection. You look at your 20 something and you can't see how your 10-year-old became that person. So yeah, I could go on about this for a long time, but that's
And I'm certain we will one day. You and me are gonna sit down and be just like, yeah, what happened? You know. So
And Hamza, there's you went through this similar process just like Nimra because you also have to go through two different time periods and established a romantic link to Mariam, who is also played by two different actresses in this case, and one of them is here with us. Tell us about that process with you.
well, I mean, it was awesome. You know what I mean? Like one to be able to find like a great deal of two different versions of intimacy with the same story as its essence with two different people. I like it's just it's such a blessing in terms of getting to do that as a job. So we started off with the 90s version, so like me in makeup and full old man gear and everything like that, and they aged us up, and then I got to play the end of the relationship uh with Nimra, and as a result we just sort of leaned into the chaos of it. Like we got so comfortable with each other immediately that it was like, all right, cool. Like we don't have to pretend here. This is what it is. This is what we've seen. Here's how, and that is we are playing like largely a typical, whatever typical is, but like a typical brown immigrant family where they sit down, they eat together, they complain about this, that, or the other thing. It's a very nuclear family in that regard, and then they get on each other's nerves. I don't even know if that's specific to immigrants. I feel like that's just most marriages that last. That last. You have to get comfortable with getting on each other's nerves and find humor in that and find love with that. And I'm so grateful to have done that with Nimra because we were able to find that immediately because we were filming that on day one. So then we completely flipped the script, moved locations, went from Halifax to um, all the way to Karachi. And once we were there, well, yeah, Halifax, yeah. So when we got there, you're in a completely different environment. You're in a completely different wardrobe. You have a completely different crew, with the exception of 3 or 4 people. And then I'm getting to do it with Amrit. Now, the great thing about that as well is Amrit and I have known each other for years, and we have grown together, and we have worked together before, and we've studied together. And as a result, um, we had a lot of fun, and more than anything, we had a lot of trust in each other built over several years to be able to both lean each other into each other with comfort and challenge each other in a way that when you're getting to love somebody and when you're starting to date each other, there is that attraction, but you're really challenging each other in a good way. Like, I did this, now you do this, and that's kind of how we approach the characters, and we were receiving some coaching for it at the same time, and that was, we were asked to watch each other's back and elevate each other, and that's kind of, you know, the beautiful thing about film, and the beautiful thing about this movie was that even though we filmed that after, like mine and Nimra's stuff, we planted the seeds for exactly what that relationship would turn into as a result of matching each other's challenge, and I think that on camera and as a story, that does look like a cohesive relationship. It doesn't seem like it's two different people. It doesn't seem like that, and that's to the credit of the two actresses, that because I had the easier job, I got to stay. You know, they had to, you know, they're the
I
ones.
feel like that job was harder to have that consistency in the two time periods, Hamza, to be that same person, even though
Mm,
that younger person who, of course, went through a lot, and you were quieter and all those other sort of changes that time sort of brings
mhm,
about. But I thought that consistency of that, that generous, giving,
mhm.
accepting person, also ahead of his time in that period.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's credit to, like, you know, I'm a I'm a less complicated character to play also, you know? My through line is Hassan's really like the lovable good guy, you know? He's always the one that's kind of corralling this thing. So that level of consistency to find, it's just like I said, it's an aspirational thing to do, because as somebody who is motivated and everything like that, and has his temper and has his bad jokes and everything, he really is just showing up for the people in his life in a real good way and supporting that. So, you know, we were, you know, with both Nimra and Amrit, we were able to build a level of trust, and whatever we threw at each other, we were able to carry, because, you know, that's what you do in a partnership. So it was fun. It was fun. I hope that answers your question. I don't even remember what it was, but
It certainly does. I mean, I love these type of relationship partnerships that you guys develop on screen, and I also love the fact that this film is goes through three time periods: 1969, 1989, and what young people like to call it the late 1900s of 1999. So tell us about being transported into those different periods, because both of you are young yourselves and definitely did not live through those time periods, right? I mean, Nimra, you must be what, 25 right now?
Ah, yes, yes, 23.
yeah,
24 at the end of the year.
yeah.
No, so I actually I'm very attached to that period in of the 80s, because I was, around Ayana's age then, and that was like when I sort of, I mean, just the way that the art direction was done of the film and how realistically the 80s were, brought to screen. I mean, from our, costume to like things we were using in the kitchen, the most important thing. So I think all of that was very well done. So we just got to inhabit that. And for me, there's a lot of nostalgia, a lot of heartache, because it's like when you're a child and you remember, and, and of course, I think in some ways, sometimes I look at myself and I can see my mother, or even though I'm not exactly like her, but you can see. So I think in some ways I was inhabiting it, and there was a lot of stuff that was emotional, evocative of the time when I was a child. So for me, that was the favorite part. The 90s are, you know, I'm going to think about my favorite part of the 90s 10 years from now. Right now, I don't know what that would be. So
How about you, for you, Hamza?
I mean, I was born in 1990, so like to be able to go through a video rental store, and one of the scenes was just like, oh man, this was my childhood. I remember being that bored kid to be just like, oh well, like, let me just go home. They don't have any of the movies that I like, and so that was wonderful. And now to be able to play at being a parent, getting to enjoy it as a child, like it was just really, I grew up on 90s movies, 2000 movies. Obviously, I'm the youngest, so the all of my other siblings, or all of my siblings, were born in the 80s. So of course I inherited that. Like, that was the cultural hand me down that I got from my siblings. And then, to go back to 1969 Karachi, I mean, both my parents grew up there. And my dad was like, he was this sort of hotshot engineer and got a good job in the Middle East, and would come back home to take care of his family. And he was sort of talked about, like, those wedding scenes. It was like he was kind of talked about in those families as like, and this is partially, I'm sure he's biased, but he would tell me, he's just like, I was in the community, like, I was the most eligible bachelor. Like, they used to parade me around, and it wasn't until I saw your mother and I went, I'm gonna marry her. You know what I mean? Like, it was just so to get to live vicariously through that, it was like I mentioned earlier, it was like putting on a VR headset, and it was just like, all right, now go explore your father's life. This is an alternate reality where you just get to go and live through that. And the beautiful, there's a very romantic thing about Karachi that, like, getting to see a lot of the locals and getting to talk to my family that I hadn't seen in decades, and getting to talk to people who had seen it grow and the stories from my childhood. There is this thing where, on a cultural level, it has obviously changed dramatically, but on a on an essential level, on what the city itself means to, the sorry, I should say, the landscape of Pakistan has changed quite a bit, but Karachi has sort of withheld this sort of nostalgic, romantic essence that I feel was felt all throughout this movie. That's why it was easy to capture. It was easy to be transported back, because it's like, I live in Montreal. You go outside, it has this very old romantic feeling. And I think Karachi lent itself to that beautifully, because I felt like I was living through that. And yeah, it wasn't a far stretch, because people still believed it. People still believed in or people there still believe in the Karachi of old, and they carry that with them. That's why the art exists there the way that it does.
Especially for a film like this, is because of the fact that it showcases Muslim stories with Muslim characters, and this is one of the things that we don't see a lot on film or TV, is showing the culture on screen, and so on. Can you both address that for us, about the importance of showcasing this, to making us be open to what the culture is?
Yeah, I
I think
think.
very rarely, yeah. Sorry, go, Hamza.
No, no, no. I've gone on plenty. You first.
No, no, I'm saying that very rarely you see something on screen in which culture isn't like represented in a way where it's explained, even in projects behind the scenes, there's so much explanation.
Mhm.
Um, but I think this film sits very comfortably in its culture where, this is who I am, and there's a bit of a song and dance that I do, and this happens, and this happens, and that's it. That's the culture is not imposed, explained, translated. And I think
Mhm.
that's why we need to see more um, stories like this, so that we don't need explanations, because actually the audience doesn't. Because if it's a film, a story that's well told, all the truths in cinema, they are universal truths, and you don't need even to understand sometimes the language of good cinema. I mean, I've seen films in other languages that I got those. So I think that
Mhm.
you have to trust that your story doesn't need to be explained. And I think that's what Fawzia did in this film. And I think we
Mhm.
need to see more stories like this, because it's not enough to just cast brown actors, to cast Asian actors. It's in non-specific roles. I think it's more important to tell their stories, and then cast them in those stories as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I find that it's just very important to distinguish religion versus culture. I think what the movie does a great deal with is that the tones of religion don't really change, and nor should they, but their cultural sort of symbiosis between culture and religion is explored in many different lenses. You see in Nimra's character how she leans a bit like, more on the conservative side through the lens of somebody who grew up in Pakistan, and this is what it means to be a good Muslim. Where Hassan has a completely different approach, like even with that sort of thing, and Amrit's character, like in the '90s as well, like has a completely different relationship with that, and that is a cultural influence on an existing religion. The religion does not change. So I love that there is an exploration of that, and it's not even a thing about picking sides. Is everybody will see themselves in a version of this character, and the division is often caused with a cultural interpretation of what everybody thinks they should do. You know, like this song and dance that Nimra was talking about. It's just like, yeah, there's just some things that you just have to do. You have to be performative to appease other people. And I feel like as we go through generationally, it's like, all right, they want to do the cultural song and dance less, you know, or the religious song and dance less. And I think it's important to give a voice and give diverse or a variety within the diversity. Like like Nimra said, diversity isn't enough, you know, because if you do one story, that one story has to be everything for everyone, and you will fail 100% of the time if you try to do that. What's great is we have three different approaches to something that is that may seem foreign. So so the universal message is everybody has their own interpretation of whatever they're going through, and that's the thing that can be that can be relatable. That everybody's parents has a different view on XYZ subject as their children, and that's the universal element. And it doesn't matter what you know, it doesn't matter what it looks like, who's cast, and what it is. We can all watch, you know, as people who come from a country that has a huge class differential, we can all sit down and watch Parasite and be just like, yeah, this is you know, this is, there's a huge class difference. And is it the poor people are the poor people the parasites that are leeching off the rich folk, or is it the rich folk that got rich leeching off the you know, the poor people? And it's just like, okay, cool, that's something we can relate to. Does it matter that it's Korean? No, it really doesn't. So ultimately, to get the opportunity to do that, and it's just like, this is a universal story, and we're all get to be so fortunate that it's a Pakistani story, it's a Muslim story. Does that matter in the grand scheme of things? No. Is it absolutely necessary? Yes.
And it's a wonderful universal story. To the both of you, thank you very much for speaking to us about The Queen of My Dreams. It is a wonderful film. You both did wonderfully, and especially I want to say that Hamza, I was like, must be a relief to play a doctor without really doing any doctor stuff
You
in
know, the
this
funny thing
film.
is, I said no to the role a couple of times because the log line was, well, he's a trauma surgeon, and I was just like, no, thanks. I'm like, I've done my part of playing the brown doctor with the accent. Nothing wrong with it. It's just I've been doing it for 4 years. So let's just do something different. And Fazia called. She's just like, the story has nothing to do with that. Please just read the script. And I was just like, fine, I'll read it. And I'm just like, oh, this is so charming. Yeah. Let's make this happen. But yeah. Please forgive me. How do I pronounce your name? I just seen it written there, but
Gig, gig,
and
just like how
is
it's
it
spelled.
Patta or Patta or
Patta, yeah.
okay, great. Well,
All
thank you for
right. Well, thank you very much for the both of you. Really
Lovely.
appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank
thank you.
you.
Bye
Bye
bye.
now.